Here we are again since March 7th, which was our last class. We've been through a lot. All of us have, and we've had to make a lot of adjustments, and this is one of the adjustments that we have to make. I'm about now to give you a, actually we're going to do a redo on the front bodice, and then I'm going to show you the back bodice. We're going to be making a sloper. Now, a sloper is a copy of the bodice that you draped at the beginning of the term. However, we are going to leave out the seam allowances. So we're only going to be using the seam lines and the dart lines. Now, there are lots of ways. I know you're supposed to have pattern making paper. Suppose you don't and you can't get to the store because the stores are not open. Maybe you have some paper that you use for your, just plain white paper. You can probably put a couple of those sheets together and you'll have enough to do your bodice. You only need about a piece that's about maybe 22 inches in width by about maybe 13 inches or 12, 13 inches in, 22 inches in length and about 12 or 13 inches in width. Now, when we're doing pattern making, of course, we have to have our supplies. Our supplies would be, again, the paper. So we decided that we're going to have some paper, whether it is your regular pattern making paper or whether you're going to use other paper, but it should be white paper so that you can get so that your lines will be seen. In addition to that, you're going to have supplies like, for example, here I have two of them. Your ruler, which I'm sure you have. A French curve. I have two sizes of French curves here for you. Whatever size French curve you have, use that. You have to have a tracing wheel. If you don't have a tracing wheel, you'll have to figure it out. You're going to be very, very inventive, I'm sure, in order to get this, which is your front bodice, onto this piece of paper. And it has to be done so that you have the exact lines that are on your bodice. So here we go. Also, of course, you got to have some scissors, pins, pencil, of course. My pencil is not the sharpest, but we'll have to make do with what we have. And here we go. First thing we need to do is to establish a line. We're doing the front now. We did the front once before. I'm going to do it again just in case some of you did not get it. So here we are making a line first. And of course, if I have the actual paper, the pattern making paper, I can use all the little dots and numbers and whatever they have lined up here. I can use that to make sure that my line is going to be straight. But in theory, your lines are basically just like the lines that you have when you are working on your muslin. Your muslin, of course, is woven, and the lines that we have are woven straight across, up and down, and make a 90-degree angle. So, all right, let's say we have our center front line, and we're going to have a line also for our bust line. Okay, so we'll do it right here, which is called the apex line or bust line. So I'm going to put a line right across here. Again, it's that 90-degree angle there that we want. And we're going to then, in the best of situations, you would have a table where you could actually put your pins right down in the table itself, like a cork or something like that. I don't have that in this case. It's a wooden table. So what I'm going to do is line it up. Remember now, I have this line across here to line up to. That's this line and these lines. And I'm going to pin it on. Now, when I pin, I'm going to make sure that the pins are not anywhere near the lines that I'm going to put in. So let's just pin it through here. I think that'll work. Not too. We've got this line, we're matching that one. Put on this line. Again, you're not going to put the pins on the lines. You're going to put them just close to it. Okay, let's try to move this over a little bit. That's good. So you can kind of stretch the muslin if it doesn't put these lines over. But these lines have to match, so you can kind of stretch it so that they do, so that all of them match. That is to say, match the two lines that you put in the lengthwise grain. This is like the lengthwise grain line. This is the crosswise grain line. This doesn't want to act right. I'm going to put it in this way. Much better, much better. Okay. Let me put another one here so that you can be sure of it. Okay, so now this is when we start using our tracing wheel. And we have to put some pressure on it because it's got to go on here, even though we don't have carbon paper under it, because when we do that, it gets to be very messy. So therefore, we just use the wheel itself. All right, here we go. And it's, again, on your seam lines, not on the line which is outside of the seam line, or out over here, which would be your seam allowance. We don't want that. We want it to be right on the seam line. So we double check to make sure it's coming through. Yes, it is. This is our shoulders dart. We're going on over here to the armhole. I think we did this. Okay, this is the one we need to do now, which is the armhole. I don't remember, did I do this one? Nope. Okay, this is our dart, the waistline dart. I sometimes like to put a little line right across here, maybe 1/4 of an inch, just to mark the end of my darts. And of course, a cross mark right here at my apex. think I have everything. I do. So now the next thing is going to be to take it off. That is to say, to take the pins out, and then take the bodice off. Now, next thing we have to do is to grab our ruler and our curves and get to work with truing the lines. In other words, we're still going to use them. We're still going to use the ruler to make sure that this line is straight. Even though we did it with the tracing wheel, we're going to true it that way to make sure it's perfect. Truing means to perfect it. Here we want to make sure that the first inch here is from the center front, 1 inch in should be 90-degree angle. And from there, it may curve a little bit because even though the waist seems like it's straight across, the body is sort of like a cylindrical. And therefore, everything is slightly rounded. It look like we're straight up and down, but we're not. We're cylindrical. Okay. Uh-oh, let me grab that. Let's put that dart in there. Waistline dart. And incidentally, it's a good idea when you're doing this to cross the lines. Don't just stop right when you get here. Kind of cross them to make sure that you're at the exact point when you get ready to cut it. I better put this line in before I do that. This is my shoulder dart, as we know. Let's bring it all the way where it's supposed to be. And then we have a little bit of a, just to make sure that's where it is. Remember I said we're gonna just put a cross mark here. Also that's our apex. Always wanna know where that is. This is the top of that dart. Okay, so we have got all that done. Let's go back up here to the shoulder seam. And if you notice, the inside of the dart is never straight across. It's always got a little angle, some angles to it, because when you fold it over to pin it together, that's the way that the inside of the dart is always angled, and I don't think I did that quite on the mark. Let's go up a little bit here. Okay, we've got it now. I'm gonna go right across. Okay, that's it. And let's do the round. First of all, we'll start with the neckline, but remember we go in about maybe 1/8 of an inch again on the 90-degree, because a circle, even though it's round there, in the center, the very center, which is our center line, we have to make sure that we're not just going up with the circle. The circle has to square off just a little bit there. It doesn't look like it when you put it on, but it is. We got that on, and here we go with the last one for our center front, and then we've got to do the center back. I mean the back, I should say back. Bodice. This actually should sit right. It does. Let's turn it until it works, so we can do it with one line. Good. This is it. We don't need to move it. That's it. So the next thing you're going to do with that is to cut it out. And this is what you'll end up with. That will be your sloper. Now, of course, we know that an actual sloper is usually made out of a cardboard or a harder kind of a piece of material. Yes? Anyway, next thing we're going to do is the back. We've got our back all ready. This is, of course, our front. So the back, we're going to do much the same thing, but not as much because, remember, the back is so much simpler than the front because we don't have the apex to deal with. But we do have to always deal with every time we gonna use anything, we're gonna do a pattern, we always have to make sure we know where is my center front, where is my center back. And this way, we have an anchor more or less for all the lines that we're gonna make. And we'll know that it's on the proper seam or the proper angle. Okay, let's make it a little bit longer, my line. My photographer here is Morgan Chisholm. He's 10 years old and he's just wonderful.
Stop. Oh my God, I'm cutting that part out.
It's not, I don't always insist upon it, but we could put the shoulder width line here, this line right here. You could put that in, again, to make sure that we're on the 90-degree angle here. That's great. See, so we're gonna, again, go through the pinning it on there, pinning the back on. And if you notice also, we have a dart here, our waistline dart, and we have our neckline dart, or I should say our shoulder dart, which is not on the neckline, it's shoulder. But it's much smaller than the shoulder line dart in the front because it does not have to go slope down to the bust line, which is the bust line is what pulls it out so that it is much, the dart will be much bigger. But the back, our backs are pretty straight, whereas the front has much more shape, with the apex being the part of the body that is the highest part of the front, or the bodice front. All right, so let's start all over again. Doesn't matter where you start when you start putting these lines in. Just have to make sure you put enough pressure on it so that you. Now, suppose you don't have a tracing wheel. It's a problem, but you got. Let's say if you have some windows in your apartment, because now we are operating under strange circumstances here. If you have an apartment window, you can probably just put it up against the window, your muslin and your paper, and actually trace it that way. So you'll figure it out. If I'm lucky, I think I finished. I don't have to put this line in because it's already here. So, like I said, it's much faster. All right. I do want to put a center line in on my back waist dart. No, that's good. Okay, we got it. So, again, we're going to mark the top of the dart, which as you can see, it's not very, they're not very close together like the darts were in the front. Again, because the back is much straighter, not as much shape. The darts are what make the garment fit by shaping. This is center back, so I'm gonna go 1 inch in. It's gonna be straight on the line there, and then we're gonna use back. I'm still gonna make it a little straight right here, 90 degrees right there, and then the rest of it gets curved. And you can, of course, you know that you can use your curve in many different, you can flip it so that you can get the exact curve that you need. We'll do the okay, now the last thing we're gonna do here. Make sure we fit it in. I'm gonna put myself a little line here so I can see what I'm doing. Here we are. And there we are. That's it. Voila. So, this is our back, and we're gonna, of course, cut around it. Now, why do we need these? We need this sloper for just about everything that we do in terms of designing a garment using the flat pattern method. So that's why it's so very important, and we are going to be using the flat pattern method from now on. And our project, as you know, is a vest. We call it a vest, but you can see that you're going to have a lot of things that you can do using the same principles of a vest. And those notes and demonstrations and more of the videos, I have a couple of videos that I'm giving you that are on Google so that you can see exactly how this is done. But the main thing that we need to look at now, or the next step, I should say, you'd be making would be how to incorporate all this in a princess line seam. Up to this point, we have been doing the darts. The darts are partial seams, but when we get to the princess line, basically what we're doing is putting two seams together, or I should say two darts together to make a seam, connecting them. That lesson is going to be done, first of all, through a video which I'll show you, 2 videos that I'll show you, and then I'll also give you a video on that myself. Until then, work on this, and hopefully I'll see you on Zoom. If not, we'll continue on Canvas, and God bless.